Oh, hey everybody. Welcome back to the Turnout. I am your host, Aloy. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so you always know when Turnout releases a new video. And I can say that so fast now. You don't It's kind of funny to me. I try to challenge myself to see how fast I can say it. And that wasn't bad, actually. That wasn't bad in terms of speed. So anyway, yeah, oh my gosh. So I'm gonna ramble here for at least a few minutes here because I want to give people a chance to show up. Last time it took a little bit for people to start getting the notifications, but I actually just got done watching WandaVision, episode 6. I have now watched it 3 times. I watched it once, like, immediately when I woke up yesterday, and I was like, "This will be fun. I can't wait to see what happens." So I watched it once just for fun. Then I watched it a second time, so that I could make notes. So that's where my notes come from. They come from the second time. And then and then I actually went ahead and watched it a third time because my wife came home and I was like, "Did you want to watch Wanda?" And she's just like, "Yeah, I totally want to watch it." And I'm like, "Well, I'll watch it again with you." So I've telling people that I've watched it 3 times. Of course, people are like, "Was it that good? Was it that monumental? Was it that pivotal?" And the answer is kind of yes, and also kind of it's interesting because what I was able to gather from this episode, it was pretty much kind of a building episode. It was an episode that was like, okay, cool. Like, let's get an idea. Like, we did a lot of building with episodes 1 through 5, and this one feels like it's gonna be like that bridge over to whatever episode 7 is gonna be, is just going to, I think, rock everybody's socks off. So that's kind of where we're at this point. So I guess what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just start from the beginning, and we're gonna kind of go blow for blow. And obviously, I'll have some some notes and stuff. But the first thing is obviously it starts off with a Malcolm in the Middle sort of opening where the lyrics are interesting and cool. It's just like, what if it's just an illusion? We should just keep it going. I thought that was actually pretty interesting. I've been listening to the lyrics of all the songs that are coming on. And this one I thought was very striking. And honestly, the music in this episode was striking kind of in general because what the older ones had is they had laugh tracks, and the show was able to utilize those laugh tracks in interesting ways. Sometimes the laugh track was because something was genuinely funny, and other times it was because something was not working, something was wrong in the universe. But of course, the studio audience has an applause sign and is told to go ahead and applause, and you would always get that weird kind of uh feeling from that, like this weird disjointed, like, I'm supposed to be laughing but what's happening is not funny. What is happening in my brain? But what ended up happening in this episode, because they were going Malcolm in the Middle style and they no longer had that laugh track, what they did have and what was big in Malcolm in the Middle was that the musical soundtrack. So instead of laughing, if something was supposed to be fun, you would have they'd have like kind of more upbeat music in the background. And if something is supposed to be touching, then they'll have like something, little musical, homage to that, where it's, lower key and all that stuff, more of like a special episode. So that was something that they were doing really, really well. Like there's a scene where Vision sees something that's very sad, but there's still like Malcolm in the Middle, like music going in the background, and it's very disjointed. And again, like I love the fact that the makers of this show are using that laugh track earlier on, but now going forward, the soundtrack to really, really great effect. And of course, since it's Malcolm in the Middle style, it's almost as if the show had, it's kind of given over to the kids. So you have Billy and Tommy kind of being the stars of the show in the beginning. I think it shifts eventually, but I love the fact that Billy was already dressed as his Wiccan self, his comic book self. I love because I have always really liked Wiccan, and I've always liked his costume. I always thought that he looked really cool. So, but yeah, so the two of them, and they're like breaking the fourth wall. There's flashbacks now. So like they're playing up all the different tropes, which is really, really good. And the boys seem to get along with their Uncle Pietro, but of course they're breaking the fourth wall, and Billy's like, I don't know, it's not really seeming like mom likes having him around, and mom and dad have been arguing more, and like all of this stuff. And I think it's really cool to see it from their perspective because they don't know what's happening. But like we know that Wanda and Vision, well, actually, we don't know. I was about to say, like, we know that they know what's happening, but not really though. At the same time, they don't really know. Um, so yeah, so Wanda comes down in her costume. This is her Scarlet Witch costume now, which I loved that they used this. This is the all new Halloween Spooktacular is the name of the episode, and I liked that they named it that, and it was really just an excuse for everybody to get in their costumes from the comics because most of these characters have like kind of ridiculous looking costumes. So again, Billy was already in his Wiccan costume. She comes down in her Scarlet Witch costume, and she says that it's a Sokovian fortune teller costume, that's pretty cool. That's a cool like in-universe explanation for why should we be dressed like that. And I don't actually know if that's true, like from the comics or where that costume came from. I should probably look that up. So, but Pietro throws us into a flashback, like I said earlier, and Wanda's like, that's not how I would remember that. And it's weird, right? Because you would think that the kids could probably do it because we established in the last episode that Wanda can control them and they actually have kind of equal power here in this, mini universe that has been created. So we know they can control stuff. So them doing flashbacks and stuff was interesting. The fact that Pietro also was able to throw them into a flashback, I think means something. So because you would think that only the people, because Vision never threw us into a flashback, so he doesn't have the same kind of control. But I think because the boys and Pietro have been created within the universe, within this little bubble, I think that that's a big thing. So, yeah. So, also, I have so many theories. We're gonna go through. We're almost there. We're almost there. So, Vision says he's got neighborhood watch. He comes down and he's dressed as himself too, which is funny. They make some jokes because it's a silly costume. But he hints at the fact that he already, like, he's still from the last episode. He knows that the universe is not right and the reality that they're living in is not right, because he's like, oh yeah, I'm wearing this because it's the only costume that was in the closet. But then he's still playing along, and he says, oh, I have neighborhood watch. And Wanda's like, oh, but that's not what you're supposed to do. And he's just like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, you didn't tell me you had plans. But no, because like in her brain, the script was he was supposed to go with her, but she can't control him. She can't control him the same way that she controls everybody else. So he's like, no, I'm gonna go do my own thing. And again, I think that I think that Evan Peters is doing a great job. Uncle P is great. And it's basically just Uncle Jesse. There was a little bit there in Full House where they called him Uncle Jay for a little bit, but Uncle Jay, he's basically the Uncle Jesse character from Full House. But if we kind of take it more in the Malcolm in the Middle direction, I think he's more like the older brother. Because whenever the older brother was there on the show, there was always kind of fun hijinks with the two younger brothers. So I did like that, and I wish that Vision had, I don't know, more of like a Bryan Cranston sort of, style that would make it really, fit better. But anyway, I at this point, Wanda, I think, is also realizing that she's growing less and less in control. Pietro gets him and Tommy, their own costumes, which I thought was pretty cool. In the comics, Billy is called Wiccan and Tommy is called Speed, and Speed just basically looks like a mini Quicksilver, so it's not that big of it's not that big of a thing. So yeah, so it's pretty cool. But yes, so outside though, so all of that, we're switching to outside, and we find that Monica is confronting Hayward about trying to kill Wanda, which that automatically is just like, bam, wait a minute. So you're telling me that they have a whole brand new day and they're getting ready for Halloween and all this stuff, and it feels like so much time has passed by in reality, in the bubble reality, but outside it's literally been like 5 minutes since the encounter with Wanda. So you can already see, like, obviously time is flowing differently in the two, sections, of this world. And and again, I have some theories as to what it is, and we'll talk about that near the end. Because I have some great things, and I feel like this claymation shark that we're about to talk about here in a little bit, I think it's the key to it all. So now everybody's in their costumes. Monica is confronting Hayward. Hayward says, "Nah, y'all, I'm done with y'all." So and kicks Darcy, Monica, and Jimmy out. Jimmy and Monica, of course, they're kick-ass like agents, so they like beat up the Sword agents. And then they get free. So boom, and then we go back inside. It's interesting how little happens outside of the bubble. It's kind of just silly. So Wanda's kind of asking questions of Pietro, trying to figure out who he is. So that's a big thing here, right? Because she did not create him. Something else created him, or she created him subconsciously. But she asked some questions like, "Hey, remember when we were in the orphanage? Do you remember the thing?" He's like, "Oh, you're testing me." And no, but it's just kind of crazy because trying to figure out who Pietro could be in this situation. Um, I don't know. I want to note too that in the last episode, she said that she was also not feeling the whole hiding my powers thing. So they're just like walking around, and he's asking her pretty frankly, like frank questions. Like, oh, hey, I'm obviously a figment of your imagination. I'm just here to give you grief because that's what you want, right? Obviously, I wouldn't look like your dead brother because I wouldn't want to be reminded of the past either. So that must be why I look different. So, again, I feel like he is existing kind of outside of Wanda's control. And that's an interesting thing. So, yeah. So Herb says that Vision isn't on watch duty, which gets Wanda kind of like, really? But at the same time, uh, Pietro is there to distract her. So she's trying to figure him out. So, she's like, I guess Vision can do whatever he wants. Vision wouldn't try and leave, would he? And of course, Vision, separated from Wanda, is kind of checking out people, and he finds that the further he gets away from Wanda, that the people aren't moving, or they're stuck in the weird loops. He actually finds this couple who is kind of doing their Halloween decorations kind of over and over. And there's this woman who's trying to hang a ghost, and she's hanging the ghost, but she's like crying while she's hanging the ghost. And that's, again, it's like one of those scenes where they're playing like they're playing kind of a little bit of upbeat music during this really striking kind of like kind of scene that's disturbing and should be disturbing, but it's like, no, it's supposed to it's happy because of the soundtrack. It's stuff like that I love about the show. But so he keeps going, and he finds out that everybody who is not around Wanda is just frozen. And oh my gosh, it's kind of crazy. So then we get a commercial break, and this again, the commercial break is literally where I think they're giving away almost too much in the commercial break for those who watch the show too. So first off, it's Claymations. It's 90s Claymation commercial style. It's fruit by the foot. It's bubble tape. It's all of that stuff, right? I loved this commercial. So, but it's a Claymation kid kind of on an island, and he's starving, and a surfing shark comes up, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so hungry." And the surfing shark is like, "I used to be hungry." And he's like, "But what did you do?" And he's like, "I snacked on Yo Magic." And it's like strawberry flavored. Like it was like a yogurt thing called Yo Magic. And the boy says, "Well, can I have some?" And he says, "Sure." And he throws him the thing and then goes away. And then the boy just keeps trying to open it. And then he just dies because he can't open it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I can't believe that they just gave away so much. And it seems like it's throwaway, right? But here's the interesting thing. Here's the cool thing about this commercial. So the first thing is the boy is hungry and the shark comes up. And the boy says, "Why aren't you hungry anymore?" And he says, "Because I've been snacking on Yo Magic." yo magic, so your magic, right? So, and it's a shark, so it'd be something a little bit like maybe a loan shark. So it would be somebody who you need something from, but they ask for way more in exchange. And in this case, the idea that Wanda has made some sort of deal with somebody to get this reality now is starting to make a lot more sense. Whatever deal to get Vision back that she made, um, is how this, whoever this being is, a lot of people are saying it's Mephisto. But if it is Mephisto and he's the reason that she's made this deal and is able to have Vision back and now her brother back and all that stuff, then what he's doing is he's sucking up her magic. So every time she uses magic, he's sucking it up. And or whoever is. So that's my theory. I feel like they gave away so much with this one, with this commercial. The other ones were a little like, oh, these seem like reflections of her inward trauma and whatnot. But this claymation commercial, oh man, I feel like it. I think it feels like it's the overall thesis of like the whole thing. But obviously, let me know what you guys think about that down in the comments, because I don't know. I feel like, yeah, that gave it away like by a lot. And I didn't get it at first, and then I got it when I watched it the second time. And then the third time confirmed it, in my opinion. So, but that's actually the cool thing is that, excuse me, that's the interesting thing. So Pietro shares with her that, you know, I was dead and then you called to me, so I came. So that was, it was just really interesting, everything with Pietro, because Pietro is, and he's very much the cocky Pietro from the comics and not necessarily from the original MCU. So he's just like snarky and makes jokes constantly. So, and he's not the guy that you like he's that really annoying guy that like no one likes. But Speed ends up finding out that he has super speed. So him and him and his brother run away, and they're told not to go past Ellis Avenue, which again, if we switch back to Vision, he finds Agnes at Ellis Avenue, and it almost seemed like she was trying to leave but got stuck, and he zaps her out of, you know, the thing, go, and she's like, wait a minute, you're Vision, you're an Avenger. And he's like, I'm Vision, but what's an Avenger? And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But we already knew that he doesn't know anything outside of Westview. So I mean, that's not super engaging. But I think the fact that she was so scared, she was like, so am I dead? What's happening here? I know a lot of people have been thinking that she is, you know, Agatha, who is like a big sorceress and has a bunch of magic and was, you know, Wanda's mentor and all that stuff. But something tells me that she's not. Something tells me that she's just a regular person. I mean, at least that's what has been given to me this episode and the last one. The last one where she's like, you can do that, when they talk about bringing people back from the dead, and she looked genuinely scared. And in this episode, it was kind of similar. It was like when she got zapped out of it, she was scared out of her mind, to the point where she was like losing it. So I dug that a lot, and I think that kind of kills the guess that she's Agatha, unless she's Agatha, but maybe pre-knowing all of the magic. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, I know a lot of people think that it's Agatha, but I'm thinking not nowadays. So Jimmy and Monica and Darcy, they start breaking into Sword records. They access Hayward's data, and they find out that he's been tracking Vision. So that's an interesting thing. But there's more in there, and Darcy's like, I'm going to get it. Yeah, we still don't actually find out what they find out. So, you know, it is what it is, I guess. But Darcy tells Monica that going through the boundary twice is going to end, has already changed her DNA, and going through again, like, is not advisable. But Monica has a guy who can help her get through. So she and Jimmy go off to do that, to go meet her contact, and Darcy stays behind to try and break through final firewalls. So a lot of people are thinking that the guy could be one of two people, either Wonder Man, because there's a lot of people saying that Wonder Man is going to come in during the show, which I think would be interesting, but I don't know if he would be that guy who can do what Monica needs. But a lot of people are also saying that it would be Reed Richards. So it could be Reed Richards. That would be an interesting way to introduce the Fantastic Four early, so we already get a taste of them, and then then they can have their own movie later on. But I'm interested to see what they end up doing and who her contact is. And this is like the third episode, I think, in a row. No, the second episode in a row that she's mentioned, I'll have a guy that can probably help us out. So I'm pretty interested in seeing who is going to do that. So here was another thing, and this was something that my wife brought up when I watched it with her, and I was like, yeah, see, I'm glad that the show addressed it. But, in this episode, there's all kinds of like families and kids and all that stuff. And again, Pietro is talking just very, very frankly to Wanda, and it's just like, oh, where you been keeping all the kids and the families and stuff. And he seems like he's just super impressed with what's going on. And like, wow, you have a lot of power. This is really, really cool. And she's like, you don't think it's wrong? And he's like, nah, man, this is great. Uh, so here's the thing. I have two conflicting theories, right? I think that he is either created and by whoever is controlling everything here as a way to distract her, as a way to keep her there, because now, anything she wants, this little pocket dimension is giving it to her. So if she thinks about her brother enough, he comes back from the dead, maybe not in exactly the right way, but he's back. So I think that that's kind of an interesting idea, is that he is the creation of, like, let's say Mephisto. The other idea would be that he is Mephisto, and Mephisto is just there playing a trick and whatnot. But then conflicting with that theory would be, why does he then ask, like, well, how did you do it? Unless he was asking, how did you do it, to see if she's figured it out yet. So he could actually not be Pietro. He could just be Evan Peters playing Mephisto, messing with Wanda. So it's an interesting theory that I have, and I haven't watched any other theory videos yet. So I'm probably, after I'm done with this, I'll go watch some others and see if anybody else is thinking the same thing that I'm thinking. But that's what I'm thinking. So I thought that was actually a really, really cool part of that. So Vision reaches the boundary and actually starts going through. He leaves the hex, but it keeps trying to suck him back in, and it starts destroying him. The way that I envision it is probably that he does not exist outside of that. Because when Wanda left, she left, but then nothing was trying to suck her back in. She just went back in. But if Vision tries to leave it, then I could totally see, like, it was trying to suck him back in, because maybe he doesn't exist without the hex. So that's an interesting thing. Billy, of course, has the same kind of witchy powers as his mom, so he senses this happening, and they go and tell Wanda to go ahead and fix that. Pietro's like, oh, it's not like your dead husband could die twice, and then Wanda like zaps him. So I thought, again, he's so annoying. And she zaps him. But he's very much like playing the antagonist, the thing that's going to try and distract him. That is the thing that he could have said to try and get her to not pay attention to what is happening, because that's kind of what I believe that his role was in this. So what she ends up doing in order to keep Vision, or to save Vision, is she then expands the boundary. So now what was, encompassing, I think if they said it was like 5-mile radius or something earlier, now it expanded even bigger, and up and down most likely. So, and it encompassed all of Sword, so all of their tents and all the people, they became part of a circus, which I thought was kind of fun. It also sucked in Darcy, but we didn't get to see what happened to Darcy. So remember, because I said Darcy stayed behind. So that'll be interesting to see what happens to him. Hayward got away, and so did Monica and Jimmy. So they all got away. But Sword is terrible. I'll say that right now, at least under Hayward's command, because they like handcuffed Darcy. And then it was like, wait a minute, what are you doing? You can't just leave her there. If you handcuff her, then you are in her, she is in your custody. You can't You can't just leave her there. Like, that's the freaking worst. And then that's where the episode ends. So, like, wow, like so much happened. It's interesting because again, so much happened in this episode, but also not too many things actually happened. There weren't many answers to questions that we already had. It was more like just more questions. So I think this is a really good kind of bridge episode to the next one. So I did actually have some new theories that I picked up about what's happening in general. So what we found is if you look back at the Guardians of the Galaxy, I think it's number 2, where they do a bunch of like jumping through like the different universes, you know, like their warp speed, but it's more like a time, it's a, what is it, a wormhole jumping sort of thing. Each of the wormholes that they jump through are hexagonal in shape. So if we are kind of looking back to you know, House of M and, you know, Mephisto and whatnot, the as far as I recall from what I have read, but Mephisto is trying to get Wanda to open a new portal so that he could come through. And what that portal would be similar to a wormhole. And again, in the MCU so far, wormholes have been hexagonal in shape. So they are in their own kind of small dimensional wormhole in there. So then that's why she has the power to, you know, warp everything. And it's just really, really cool how they're doing it. So I think that lends a lot more credence to Mephisto. And Yito is saying here, what are you saying? That's interesting to say, considering that his role in the original comic story, Quicksilver's at least, he was manipulating Wanda throughout House of M. I think that is true that he was manipulating her. Although I feel like that was more of a, like, he wasn't dead already. Like, you know, Quicksilver was there, you know, I think in the comics. So with him being dead and just being back for just an episode at this point, there wasn't really necessarily as much time for us to get invested in a he's manipulating her sort of storyline. But also, if you go back, and I've watched some clips shared with me by a friend of mine, Rush, but he sent me some clips of Elizabeth Olsen talking about how she's excited about the new things, but also stating that what WandaVision is a concept, and it's a thing that Kevin Feige came up with. And yes, they are taking storylines from the comics and incorporating them, but you know, but it is supposed to be a new telling of the story and not supposed to be just a retelling of what's in the comics. So that would tell me that even though we have all these things and we're like, oh, this person could be that from the comics and this could be how all of that works, it's most likely not like that easy, and it's probably not going to be as straightforward as just what happened in the comics also happens here. So let me see what you're saying here. Quicksilver does die during House of M. Magneto loses it with him, realize he was the one behind Wanda's machination. So yeah. Well, yeah, so saying that he dies during House of M is cool, but in this case, in the MCU, he's been dead and now is back alive during House of M. So it's slightly different. But yeah, so the No More Mutants, yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, that's kind of the thing is that with no mutants, no Magneto, you know, with these things not necessarily being a thing in the MCU, it'll be interesting to see what angle they take with this. And I still think that it's possible that she could, you know, turn everybody in the entire town into mutants. Like Herb would be a mutant. Like, that's an interesting thought. But I would like to point out that Dottie hasn't been around for a little bit. You know, Dottie and her husband, even though a lot of the other characters have come back, Dottie has not been there. And I think it's because Dottie doesn't want to be known. I still believe that Dottie is the witness that Jimmy Woo was after. So the one that was in protective custody, because she is sorceress, or yeah, she's a sorceress. That's right. So it's interesting just to see what's happening. I don't know. It's very weird. Madness Arcade Pietro is a mix of both with MCU memories. I called it. I don't think, but that's what I'm saying though, is I don't think that it's that. I believe that he is just like he's a figment, right? He was created just like the boys are created. And then the question becomes, are any of these new people that have been created by Wanda within these walls, will they still exist if the walls drop? So that'll be the question. Like, are these kids real? Is her brother real? Or are they all just made up by her? So I don't actually think that it's I don't think that it's the, the Fox Quicksilver coming over. I don't think so. Now, after watching this episode, I don't think so. But again, I don't know anything. So all of these are theories. But yeah, so Dottie is in the next episode, I think, from a trailer. Okay, well, good. Dottie coming back would be good because I miss my Emma Caulfield. I do love her. But yes, hopefully you guys enjoyed this live stream. I decided to go live this time. I've just been kind of enjoying doing that. And I know that some of you guys started showing up near the end, but I threw a lot of theories out during this whole live stream. So definitely go back and check out what I said, for the whole rest of it. So let me see. I heard something about the boys being in Doctor Strange 2. I don't know if it's true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're not going to really know. And you don't have to apologize for being late or anything, but that's why it's on YouTube for posterity. But I started it at 2, at 2, maybe that's not a good time. That works out. Like, I'll mess around and I'll jump around. I'll try different times. We'll see what ends up happening and working in the end. But I appreciate everybody who did show up and participated in the chat. I always do appreciate the back and forth. Otherwise though, excuse me. Otherwise, I think we're gonna probably call it there. Yeah. So Monica said that they're real, but they are real within the wall, within the hex. Are they still real if they leave? That's the question. And like I said, with Vision trying to leave and the Thing basically wanting to destroy him to bring him back and to suck him back, and is willing to destroy him to do it, that tells me that maybe they're not supposed to exist outside of this pocket reality. So I don't know. It's a weird thing. I'm just saying. So yeah. And hello to Dustin for showing up, but I'm actually about to end it. So thank you for coming to, wait, what's my ending? What do I say? I've been your host, Aloy. This has been the Turnout. Thanks for showing up. I'll talk to you guys after the next episode next week. Oh, I'm so excited. See you guys later.